the day my fiancé eloped with his sister. That's when I found out they actually have no blood relation. I angrily accused them of inappropriate behavior. During the argument, she pushed me down the stairs. Fortunately, my fiancé's brother rushed over in time to catch me, but he became paralyzed from the waist down as a result. From then on, he could only live in a wheelchair. Oliver told me he had liked me for a long time, but he always felt he couldn't compare to his brother. He said saving me was the luckiest thing in his life. I felt both touched and somewhat guilty upon hearing this. Not long after, we got married. However, he was paralyzed from the waist down. He lost his ability to move normally. Oliver felt very guilty about this, no matter how difficult the rehabilitation training was. He silently endured it all. He never complained. However, when I was on a business trip, I found his WeChat step count showed he walked 20,000 steps in a day. In Sophia's social media video, the background sound is all his voice. You believe me. I've been married to a leaner for 2 years, but nothing has ever happened. I will always be yours. Later I understood, it's not that he couldn't do it, but that I wasn't qualified. But when I left for another place, after completely leaving, Oliver started searching for me everywhere. I tried to stay calm. I called Oliver, hearing his familiar voice. My fingers couldn't help but tremble. I asked, Oliver, where have you been these days? Same old, same old. Other than doing rehab training, just staying at home. Has something happened? The scenery outside the window quickly receded. I casually wiped the tears from my face. I asked him what was up with his WeChat steps. Oliver simply answered that my phone fell. He actually used such a lame excuse to deceive me. When meeting with clients, all I can think about is Oliver. My partner noticed that something was off with me. He took the initiative to take on the work. He told me to go home and rest early. Second brother, you hurt me. Oliver and I's marital home is a flat. We knocked down quite a few walls. The whole space feels very open. At this moment, a woman's charming voice came from the bathroom, mixed with the sound of water. Intermittently, my heart sank suddenly. I sat weakly on the sofa. Sophia is the adopted daughter of the Smith family. She grew up with the 2 brothers of the Smith family. Oliver is 2 years younger than Ethan. As soon as the word second brother came out, you don't need to guess to know who it is. It's my husband, Oliver. It was completely dark. The sound of water in the bathroom finally stopped. Sophia walked out. Her face was flushed. She was only wrapped in a bath towel. The situation just now was very clear. She saw a dark figure sitting on the sofa. She screamed in fright. Alina, didn't you say you'd be back the day after tomorrow? Sophia's face turned pale. She appeared somewhat flustered. She tightly clutched the towel in front of her, trying to cover herself, but the red marks on her skin were still faintly visible. She said angrily, "You Smith family people, it's truly unbearable." Alina, Sophia casually threw on Oliver's coat with a look of grievance on her face. I know you're still blaming me for taking Ethan away, but you also know that my second brother has limited mobility. I just wanted to help him. Besides, I'm his sister. There's no need to be so distant. In the past, I really believed her words. In the end, I saw her lie down on Ethan's bed with my own eyes. Only then did I realize she was not the biological daughter of the Smith family. Oliver got dressed. He slowly walked out of the bathroom with a cane. Frowning, it seems like I interrupted his good moment. He said to me, Alina, stop messing around. These past 2 years, Sophia and my elder brother have been abroad and haven't returned. It's just that I didn't want to make you sad. Now that so much time has passed, you should let go. Oliver struggled to walk in front of me. A few simple words. Just pushed his inappropriate relationship with Sophia onto me. But when I saw his weak legs, I found myself unable to say a harsh word to him. In Sophia's words, when Ethan betrayed me back then, I was like a madman. My emotions were out of control. I felt like the whole world owed me something. This time is different. Oliver never truly loved me. I thought we had mutual understanding and companionship. Actually, it's just my one-sided imagination and self-indulgence. He saved me back then, and those subtle signs of affection towards me, in fact, it was all to keep me stable, so that Sophia would have the chance to make a self-sacrifice. However, he indeed became disabled because of me. Yeah, I didn't refute him and I wasn't angry anymore. I just nodded calmly. My face showed no expression. Oliver looked a bit surprised by my reaction, because he knows I'm not usually someone who can stay calm, but he just paused for a moment. Then, as if out of goodwill, he reached out his hand to me, letting me help him back to the bedroom. My relationship with Oliver actually stems from that accidental event. If his leg could fully recover. This time, would I be able to leave without any guilt? Oliver has light sleep. We have always slept in separate rooms. I sleep in the master bedroom. He sleeps in the secondary bedroom. But when I returned to the room feeling restless, I found the place in disarray. Everything was haphazardly piled in the corner. At that moment, Sophia opened the door. She was directing the workers to move in the new furniture. I'm only used to living in a south-facing room. So my second brother temporarily let me stay in your room. Please don't mind. Once Ethan and I finish decorating our new place, I will move out. Ethan is still abroad. Sophia returned first, but she didn't go back to the old house. She went straight to live in my and Oliver's home. You can do whatever you want at this point. There's no point in arguing with her anymore. Under Sophia's surprised gaze, I picked up the clothes scattered on the floor one by one and put them in the guest room. The clothes don't have to be folded too neatly. After all, they will all be packed into a suitcase soon, to sail across the ocean with me. But the only thing that worries me is Oliver's leg. I tidied up the room after making it livable. Take the therapy tools and knock on Oliver's door. Eleanor, I said, about Sophia moving in. Don't take it to heart. She's been spoiled at home. No one has been able to manage her. Oliver is leaning on the sofa, gently pressing his temples. He looks like he has a headache. But actually, his tone is full of indulgence. I gave Oliver a simple massage, and then I inserted many fine needles at the acupoints on his legs. In these 2 years, I searched for doctors everywhere, accompanied him in his rehabilitation training. I even specially learned traditional Chinese medicine. I don't want to miss any opportunity for his recovery, so I give him massages and acupuncture every day in these 2 years. Thank you for your hard work. He pulled me into his arms. His voice was a bit hoarse. He gently whispered in my ear, "Actually, there's something I've always wanted to tell you. I just couldn't find a good opportunity." Oliver rarely takes the initiative to approach me. I didn't react right away. I quickly took a step back. Just right. I also have something I want to tell you. Oliver's legs can basically stand now, as long as he continues with the rehabilitation training. He'll be fully recovered in less than half a year. After the doctor said this, my tears immediately began to flow. It felt like I had finally passed through a long darkness. But at this moment, I don't want to wait for dawn with Oliver anymore. I was just about to speak. Sophia pushed the door and walked in. "Eleanor, if you have any dissatisfaction with me, you can tell me directly. Why did you smash the cup Ethan gave me?" Her eyes were red. She pointed at me and scolded loudly. Then she showed a vulnerable expression and said, "Stealing your fiancé, it was my fault. I originally planned to make it up to you later, but since you care so much, then I won't appear in front of you again." Before I could say anything, Sophia slammed the door and left. As she was about to leave, she gave Oliver a deep look and said, "Second brother, I'm sorry." At that moment, Oliver, who had been paralyzed for 2 years, suddenly stood up straight. He hurriedly pulled out the needle and rushed out in a hurry. He didn't even look at me. I stood there in a daze. It turned out Oliver's legs had long since recovered. I bent down to pick up the needle on the ground. My heart felt like it was weighed down by a stone. My nose tingled. It was an indescribable discomfort. I often dream about Oliver being normal again. He would hold my hand, and we would walk by the lake. I could slowly share my past hardships with him. Oliver would hold me in his arms. He spoke to me in his gentle voice. "You've worked hard, but I never expected this. The day has truly arrived, but I can't feel happy at all. The past, I have already done my best from now on. I just want to completely cut ties with Oliver and the Smith family." My face is pale. I turned around and called my partner. "I'm very interested in the project in Country M. Can you let me join?" The past, to cure Oliver's leg. I tried many unreliable methods, crystal amulets blessed by monks in 2 years. These things filled Oliver's room. Looking back now, it's really quite absurd. I threw all these things into the trash, including all my feelings for Oliver, all cleared away, while organizing the bookshelf. I accidentally saw Oliver's medical records. It clearly stated, Oliver's athletic ability has fully recovered. 1 week ago, Sophia had just returned to the country. Oliver immediately took her for a follow-up check. After confirming her recovery, he took her to the amusement park to climb mountains and watch the sunrise. There is a locked cabinet under the bookshelf. On Sophia's birthday, the box was opened. There was no property certificate inside. There were no equity documents either, only a thick pile of love letters. These love letters had not yet been sent out, and were sealed away. I was moved by Oliver's passionate love, and tears streamed down my face instantly. At that moment, he actually called. "Eleanor, how could you do such a thing? Sophia almost got into an accident because of you. You should hurry to the hospital to apologize to her. Otherwise, this matter won't just end like this." A usually gentle and elegant person actually shouted at me in such a loud voice. I was struggling to release my emotions. I almost shouted uncontrollably, "Oliver, you have any conscience left?" The person on the other end of the phone was clearly startled by my tearful shout. 2 years ago, it was you who suddenly appeared. Even if all the care and love were fake, I, Eleanor, wouldn't complain. After all, you really saved me and gave me the courage to live well. But why? Why didn't you even tell me about your recovery? You didn't tell me at all. My throat tightened. I couldn't speak. There was still silence on the other end. After a long while, Oliver finally lowered his voice, repeating the same words over and over. "Eleanor, this isn't fake. It's really not. You wait for me. I'll be back soon." As soon as the call ended, I felt completely weak. I just sat on the floor. At this point, I no longer held any hope for him. I placed the divorce agreement prepared by the lawyer on his desk. I'm about to leave. Oliver called again. He said Sophia isn't feeling well. She still needs to be examined. She might stay in the hospital for a night. He asked if I could help deliver her coat. On the other end of the line, Sophia's voice came through. "Second brother, I'm really scared. Can I not be hospitalized, Eleanor? Are you still there?" I smiled wryly and talked to myself. Then I hung up the phone. I glanced at the divorce agreement on the table. Then I closed the door and left, it seems. Oliver has already made a decision. There are only a few days left before leaving the country. I casually found a hotel to stay in. Oliver called me several times. I didn't answer any of them. He left me a message. He said he would let Sophia move out. He asked me to wait for him to come home. But now, their matters are no longer related to me. Moreover, since then, Sophia posts on her social media every day. Each post is about Oliver. They climbed the highest mountain in New York together, enjoying meteor showers, sunrises, and sunsets. The caption reads, "Congratulations to the second brother, regaining freedom." In the photos, Oliver barely shows his face. Each one is taken from the side. His gaze is directed at the girl next to him. The tenderness in his eyes can be felt through the screen. 3 days later, Oliver returned home. He immediately called me several times. "Eleanor, what's going on with the stuff on the table?" Oliver explained to me. He hadn't come back these past few days. It was because Sophia hadn't returned to the country for a long time. He discovered that many places had changed. So he kept dragging him around to see. He didn't tell me that his leg was already healed. It was because I had been on business trips. He originally wanted to wait for me to come back and surprise me. But then a series of misunderstandings occurred. He hadn't had the chance to say it. Oliver might think so. I'm upset because he hasn't come home these past few days. But actually, I've already arranged all my escape routes. After this departure, I won't be coming back. I smiled coldly. I urged Oliver to sign the documents quickly. Otherwise, I wouldn't mind resolving the divorce through legal means. As the departure date approaches, I went to the company with my colleague Benjamin to carry out the final handover work. "What are you thinking about?" I stood there in a daze, holding a pile of things. I looked at Benjamin apologetically. I shook my head. I didn't expect the things the company wanted to take away to be more than what I have at home. He casually took some heavy items, pressed the elevator button. Just as he was about to enter, another hand stopped him. "Let me do it." Oliver walked out from inside. His tone wasn't very good. He directly pushed Benjamin aside, took all the items, and looked at me with an undeniable gaze, saying, "Eleanor, let's go home. I don't want to argue with him at the company." I shook him off as soon as I got outside. I don't understand what Oliver is up to. He previously did that to get me to agree to Sophia and Ethan's situation. He even proposed to me. Now I'm taking the initiative to step back, give him freedom, yet he still wants to cling on. Are you worried I might disturb Sophia's life again? Oliver, you Smith family members, I won't have any more contact, you can rest assured. No need to sacrifice yourself for Sophia anymore. It's not worth it. That's all I have to say. I turned around and got into Benjamin's car. I didn't expect he still wouldn't give up. He reached out and grabbed the car door. I have already sent Sophia back to the old house. Oliver tightly gripped the car door. His fingers turned white. He said softly, "Trust me one more time." Seeing him like this, I felt like I was back 2 years ago when he proposed to me. "My heart and mind are filled with you." But later I found out Such people can also lie. Eleanor, even the Smith family members are unreliable. Could Grandma be the same? I felt a tightness in my heart. Oliver's grandma is the only person from the Smith family that I care about. Divorcing Oliver. That's what I least want the old lady to know. She has always hoped for my happiness, especially after Ethan let me down. In the end, I agreed to Oliver's request. I decided to return to the old house in a couple of days to celebrate Grandma's 80th birthday, but I didn't tell him. After attending the birthday party, I will be going to Country M. I closed the car door. Oliver was still standing there. He said softly, "Eleanor, what can I do to make you stay?" I bought Grandma's favorite pastries and prepared a gift for her birthday celebration. I knocked on the old house's door right on time. I still remember the first time I came here. I am Ethan's fiancé. Since then, this old building has almost become my nightmare. I can't swim, but I was accidentally pushed into the pool by Sophia. Since then, every time I see her, it seems like there's always a conflict between us. Our encounters are always unpleasant. It's not that I'm timid or afraid, but I always feel isolated from the whole world. At that moment, Eleanor arrived. Sophia opened the door with a smile, as if nothing had happened before. In the banquet hall, except for the birthday star and Ethan, who is still abroad, everyone else has basically arrived, but no one welcomed me. Where did Oliver go? Why isn't he with you? Oliver's mom glanced over, clearly more concerned about Oliver, who had just recovered. I'm not ready to talk about divorce yet. My heart is in turmoil. Oliver pushed the door and came in. It suddenly attracted everyone's attention. He walked towards me with big strides. There was a smile in his eyes. Why didn't you wait for me? The atmosphere in the room became lively all of a sudden. Everyone gathered around. They wanted to see how Oliver's leg was healing. Sophia bit her lip tightly when she saw Oliver hugging me closely. She held her lower lip tightly. It was almost noon. I finally saw Grandma. Her health was getting worse. I looked at her pale lips. It was even harder to tell her that Oliver and I had divorced. Grandma held my hand. She said with a pained expression, "My Eleanor, how could you lose so much weight in just a month?" She turned to look at Oliver. Then she said to me, "You can recover your health. You should thank your wife. Don't let her work so hard in the future." Oliver kept his mouth shut. He didn't say anything. Sophia next to me is pouting. She mumbles quietly. Wasn't she the reason I got hurt before, during the meal? She quickly sat down next to Oliver. I wisely sat next to Grandma during the meal. Sophia occasionally asked Oliver to peel shrimp, and sometimes to serve him dishes. It seemed like she wanted to prove that she has always been the most important to Oliver. Oliver didn't mind this at all. He has a cleanliness obsession, but he could naturally pick up the leftover food from Sophia and put it into his own bowl after finishing the meal. I prepared to say goodbye to Grandma and then leave. Oliver walked over to me. He lowered his head and whispered in my ear, "Eleanor, don't walk alone. I have something to tell you later." After saying that, he followed Oliver's dad upstairs. Seeing you both getting along well, I felt at ease. Grandma's drooping eyes shimmered with tears. Anyone with a discerning eye can see it. He actually cares about you a lot. He just has an introverted personality since childhood. He doesn't express himself well. In these past 2 years, it all depends on your tolerance for him. I kept my head down and said nothing. Grandma thought I was just shy. Actually, I had already seen the love letters he wrote to Sophia. I understand. Oliver has an immeasurable love hidden in his heart, yet he has never shown me even the slightest bit. This year's first snow arrived right on time. Just looking at it makes me feel the biting cold wind, and I am about to leave this place, to a distant place. From now on, I will have no more attachments. The sky slowly darkened. Oliver still hadn't arrived. I stood up, preparing to leave. If there's anything to say, it can be said over the phone. Ever since the day he rushed out of the house for Sophia, he vowed, "My life will no longer wait for Oliver." Eleanor, second brother, said he has something to find you. Sophia comes down from upstairs. She pokes her head out and calls me to the pavilion outside. She says Oliver is waiting for me there. After saying goodbye to Grandma, I walked to the pavilion, only to find it completely empty. I looked up, through the bright glass window on the second floor. I saw Sophia smiling and leaning by the window. She reached out and pulled. Oliver suddenly appeared. The man unbuttoned half of his shirt. He pressed Sophia against the glass with both hands. His hands moved back and forth on her body. His gaze was filled with desire. Sophia then turned around, her almost bare body pressed against the window. From a distance, I seemed to see her triumphant expression. A layer of mist slowly formed on the glass. At that moment, I understood. Even if the heart is already battered, it will still feel pain. I really couldn't bear to watch any longer. I hurriedly ran out of the yard. The old house is in the suburbs. The snow on the road is getting thicker. Without a car, it's impossible to walk. I slowly walked in the snow. Deep footprints were left behind. Suddenly, the phone vibrated. I answered the call with my stiff fingers. Sophia's sweet voice came through the phone. "Eleanor, brother asked me to tell you, don't mess around." A faint voice came from the other end. She paused for a moment. Then she spoke softly. "Brother said, you don't need to wait for him anymore, just go ahead on your own." After saying that, the call was abruptly ended. Everything around suddenly fell silent again. After walking for a while, I felt my body alternating between cold and hot. My consciousness was becoming increasingly blurred. It seemed I was about to collapse. At that moment, I vaguely saw a familiar car appear before me. A man got off the car. He quickly ran towards me. When I woke up again, I was covered in various instruments. There was only me in the entire closed ward. I was sent to the ICU due to pneumonia. It was Benjamin who saved me. We had originally planned to meet at 6 in the afternoon, but he waited for a long time without receiving any news from me, so he drove to find me. By the roadside, he found me lying in the snow. I had already lost consciousness when he came to visit. He was still saying that I was too careless. I didn't expect that the usually capable and decisive Eleanor would also stumble so badly in matters of the heart. I just smiled helplessly. After a while, Benjamin said to me, a bit embarrassed, "Just now the hospital wanted to contact family members, so he notified Oliver, but the voice on the other end was a woman's. No need to guess, it must be Sophia." Benjamin went abroad ahead of schedule as planned. I needed to be hospitalized. It was postponed for a week before I left. What I didn't expect was, Oliver didn't sign the divorce agreement. Instead, he was asking around for news about me. He also learned about my plans to go abroad through the company. I had just found out about this not long ago. Then the phone rang. I thought it was Oliver calling, only to find out it was Grandma when I answered. She said she knew about me and Oliver. She wouldn't stop me, but she hoped I could come back to see her before going abroad. I agreed, but I went to see her a day earlier. Grandma clearly didn't expect that. She was taken aback for a moment. Then she sighed. "It seems you've already made up your mind." I squatted in front of Grandma, resting my head on her lap. My tears flowed uncontrollably. I know, since my parents passed away, Grandma is the only one in this world who truly wishes for my happiness. So, even if she helps Oliver bring me back, I won't blame her. It's just, this person, Oliver, I never want to see him again. I didn't stay long. I called a car, heading straight to the airport. On the way, a familiar car suddenly rushed over, driving very fast. It zoomed past me. In that moment, I caught a glimpse of Oliver's gloomy face. I figured he should be at the old house, so I took the initiative to call him. "Are you really that unwilling to see me? The matter with Sophia is actually a misunderstanding. She arranged it all on purpose. Why are you unwilling to listen to my explanation?" The moment the call connected, he couldn't wait to interrupt. Even if everything was arranged by Sophia on purpose, Oliver has deceived me time and again. He always chooses to stand by Sophia. Doesn't that have anything to do with him? You just need to sign the divorce agreement. No need to say anything more. Eleanor, unless I die. Otherwise, don't think about getting a divorce. He shouted loudly with a hoarse voice. I have known Oliver for so long. I have never seen him this angry before. It's as if I made a huge mistake. I was taken aback for a moment. Then I said, "It's nothing. My lawyer back home will help me sort this out." The airport announcement sounded. I was standing at the boarding gate, just about to present my boarding pass. At that moment, Oliver appeared behind me, panting. He grabbed my hand tightly. "Eleanor, if I were a minute later, Oliver might never see me again." He suddenly thought of a possibility and tightened his arms. He pulled me aside. "Do you really not want to see me?" The boarding pass in my hand said it all. Oliver suddenly lost his spirit. He wasn't as angry as he was on the phone earlier. "So you still can't forget about your brother, right?" I stared at him wide-eyed. Tears were welling up in my eyes. "Oliver, these past 2 years, I have loved you wholeheartedly. Can't you see? Why do you have to hurt me like this now?" He let go of my hand. His gaze dimmed. His lips moved, but no sound came out. He said to me, "Get a grip. Don't mention Ethan. I don't even want you anymore." He turned around, stupidly pressing his hand against his chest. I couldn't tell what Oliver was thinking at that moment. Maybe he wasn't thinking about anything at all. but I understood. He felt the helplessness I experienced in the past. I left. Oliver stood there, plenty of sunlight and busy work, enough to chase away all unpleasantness. Benjamin has studied abroad. With his assistance, I quickly adapted to the project team and local life. A quiet afternoon. I ran into an old friend, Ethan, downstairs in the company. She suggested, "You want to grab a coffee together? He seems more mature than 2 years ago." I have also changed quite a bit. From Ethan's surprised expression, my encounter with him seems purely coincidental. I relaxed a little. I sat down with him. "About you and Oliver, I feel very sorry. I didn't expect that after such a long time apart. The most we talked about was actually Oliver." I shook my head gently. I pressed my lips together. "I didn't return home with Sophia. Actually, it's because I'm avoiding it. I originally thought the biggest obstacle to being with her is to determine my own feelings, to break through moral constraints, even at the cost of hurting you. But I was wrong. She doesn't love me at all." He looked up at me, then said, "What I mean is, she only cares about herself." He unexpectedly talked a lot with me, but I still don't understand what Ethan really wanted to say. He suddenly shifted the topic to Oliver. He said, "Since I left, Oliver hasn't returned home for a whole month. He almost lost contact, the only time. Sophia pretended that Oliver's father had a heart attack. She tricked Oliver into coming home. When Oliver found out the truth, he was so angry he nearly smashed the house. He cursed everyone and said he wanted to sever ties with the family. Oliver is not that kind of person." I took a sip of coffee. Now, when I think of Oliver, I feel nothing inside. "I don't believe it either." Ethan smiled and said, "But he hit Sophia and then ran out of the house. Since then, no one has seen him again." The sky gradually darkened. When he left, Ethan called out to me, "Alina, if I hadn't changed my mind about not getting married back then, the subsequent events wouldn't have happened. I hope you can have a good life. This is from the heart. Indeed, our fates may take different paths, but it may not lead to good outcomes. Ethan, without Sophia, could become another Oliver. We will go through the same paths again because of his unaccepted love, enduring the same pain. Later, I never heard any news about Oliver again. We never had mutual friends to begin with. It was only by chance that we got together. This lifetime, among the people I know, the person I know best is actually Benjamin. We have been partners since we started working. Although I don't interact much with him privately, it seems we are intentionally or unintentionally keeping our distance. What would you like to drink? I'll go get some coffee. How about you guys?" Benjamin and I spoke at the same time. The office suddenly fell silent. My colleagues joked that we really have a good understanding. They even urged us to go together. I refused. I hurriedly ran downstairs. Only then did I realize it was raining outside. I jogged all the way to the cafe. I was frowning, shaking off the rain from my body. A long hand offered me a tissue. I was about to say thank you. When I looked up, I saw Oliver. I was startled. I stepped back a bit. He quickly reached out and pulled me back. "Be careful." Oliver gently brushed my wet hair off my forehead. Then he skillfully called over the waiter. He brought me a cup of hot water. He asked me, "What are you doing here?" Actually, I already knew the answer. The last time I saw Ethan, it was also at this cafe. He clearly promised me that he wouldn't tell Oliver about my whereabouts. Now, it seems, he obviously didn't keep his promise. However, Oliver at most only knows that I've been to this coffee shop. He knows nothing else. He dares to wait here. What surprised me even more was the waiter could actually call out Oliver's name and jokingly asked him if he had finally found the person he had been looking for. He nodded with a smile and said, "Alina, I was too foolish before. I will pursue you again for everything in the past. I will do my best to make up for it." Oliver held my hand. I immediately pulled away. I gave him a disgusted look. Oliver wasn't angry. On the contrary, the corners of his mouth lifted slightly, as if he had long anticipated my reaction. "If you like it here, I will stay here with you. Whatever you want to do, I will support you. Don't overthink it." Months ago, my relationship with Oliver had completely ended. Whether it was beautiful memories, it's still a painful experience. I've sealed them all away, but he insists on breaking it all apart. Now, I'm just tired of him. I picked up my colleague's coffee and turned to walk out. Oliver still wanted to follow, but was blocked by a large hand. Benjamin narrowed his eyes warily. He was on guard against the sudden intruder. He emanated a cold aura. He opened the door and gestured for me to go out first. But Oliver didn't want to let me leave so easily. "Everyone unrelated, please step aside." If anyone should be uninvolved in this matter, it would definitely be you, Benjamin said with a smile, but his eyes were filled with anger. Now you regret it. When Alina was critically ill in the hospital, where were you? If you ask me, you might as well have stayed crippled. At least then he wouldn't disturb her life anymore. Only then did Benjamin understand. He bit his teeth in displeasure. Then he slammed the door shut. A dozen coffees in my hand were snatched away by him. He walked ahead angrily. Benjamin is much taller than me. I still caught up and shared some of the umbrella with him. Why did you only bring one umbrella to deliver? I tried to find a topic to discuss, to ease the strange, awkward atmosphere, but he just rolled his eyes. He said, "From now on, I'll buy the coffee. Your luck is really terrible." Oh, Oliver didn't catch up, but he always seems to find me. Once, I was having dinner with a client, clearly not near the company, yet I ran into him. He didn't come over to disturb me, but I felt particularly awkward during that meal. I always felt like someone was watching me. Oliver was like a ticking time bomb, tied to me. Before leaving, he had someone send a bouquet of roses. He smiled at me from a distance and gestured. Then he left. What is going on here? Benjamin threw the flowers directly into the nearby trash can. It seems he's still not satisfied. He kicked the trash can again. For the next week, I stayed at home. I didn't go anywhere. My daily life was just running back and forth between the company and home. Benjamin always followed me, worried that I might encounter some accident, although I was a bit worried too. I didn't want to trouble him. I planned to refuse his kindness. But he simply pushed me back with one sentence. He's become abnormal. Who knows if he might destroy everything if he can't have it? I tried to reassure him. I joked that I would be fine. I'm not something particularly precious. Oliver wouldn't risk a life for me. I would. Benjamin's gaze was chillingly intense. I couldn't help but shiver. He continued to speak. If he keeps pestering me like this, I really want to take care of him. Consider it as taking a life for you. After Oliver appeared, Benjamin's behavior became a bit unusual. However, fortunately, this week finally passed without incident. A week later, I spoke at the medical summit, presenting our company's newly developed medication. When I talked about how this medication helps paralyzed patients regain sensation in their limbs, I spotted Oliver in the crowd. He sat quietly there. It reminded me of the time 2 years ago when he was paralyzed from the waist down, at the gala. Oliver finally found me alone. "Alina, don't run away." At that moment, I realized Oliver was actually so much taller than me. "I understand everything you've done for me over the years. I will never doubt your sincerity again. Come home with me." "Okay." Oliver's eyes were filled with tears. "You've pushed me into a corner, leaving me no chance to escape. From a distance, others might think we are a sweet couple." I took a step back, only to realize there was no way back. Oliver's gaze was filled with determination. He grabbed my hand and forcefully put a ring on my ring finger. The ring was too tight. It made me feel very uncomfortable. This was made according to the previous design. "Do you like it?" I wanted to scream for help, but Oliver's gaze made me too scared to speak, until tears flowed into my mouth. I still couldn't say a word. I didn't want to go with Oliver. We were both stuck like this. Suddenly, a figure flashed past me. That person said nothing. With one punch, he struck Oliver's chin. Oliver's white shirt collar was instantly stained red. The people around gasped in shock. It was Benjamin. He glanced at me, then turned his gaze to Oliver. His eyes were filled with anger. He unbuttoned his cuffs and threw another punch at Oliver's face. By the time I reacted, they were already in a scuffle. When the police arrived, Benjamin had also been injured. After the investigation, along with my testimony, Oliver was detained. He was about to be deported and would never be allowed to enter again. When Oliver left, I went to see him off. After a few days apart, he had dark circles under his eyes. His arm was also injured by Benjamin, hanging around his neck. "Do you never want to see me again?" His voice was a bit hoarse. It carried a hint of disappointment, seeing me shake my head. The light in his eyes completely vanished. Before walking through the airport gate, Oliver glanced back. He seemed to mutter an apology. I couldn't hear it clearly. He pressed the gas pedal, leaving everything from the past far behind.